how did you end up deciding that you wanted to study, supply chain logistics?
When I was in school, I was in business. I didn't really have a clear direction. I just kind of wanted to figure it out. And they did an advertisement. When I said they reclassified it as supply chain management, initially it was called industrial distribution management. Yeah. So I went to a seminar on it, and just with the way all the pieces fit together sounded very interesting to me. And I really wanted to go into consulting, and it seemed like a fairly clear path as to how to get in consulting. So, when you're young, you've got limited attachments and you want to bolster your career, it adds a high trajectory level that, if you can stick it out for a while, it gives you a lot of experience that you can build off later on. And, the funny part is, one of the reasons I mentioned they rebranded it was kind of like I did here. You spend, when you're in college, you're trying to get job interviews, you get a half an hour in the first 10 minutes of you explaining what industrial distribution management is. So we're just going to cut to the chase and go with supply chain management years later.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Do you remember, was there any class either in high school or college that just got you super amped up about the field that really inspired your excitement? I know I'm asking you to go back 20 something years, but I'm always curious what inspires people to the space. Cause for reference, 9 times out of 10, procurement finds you don't find it, right?
Exactly. Yep. There were probably 2 or 3 that really kind of spurred me. One was kind of a business management class that had a lot of case studies that was problem solving, and you had a lot of different you had to view it from a lot of different operational backgrounds. And, when you're 19 and 20 and you've got no background, it's all pie in the sky. And then the professors kind of walking you through, okay, good idea here. Well, not exactly how that works. I had this a professor for a purchasing class. And I remember the book was yay big and it could have been dry as all get out. And he was an older gentleman and he just had a great sense of humor. He's like, look, I've been here 35 years. They're not going to fire me. So he kind of did the way he wanted to do it. And it really kind of got you involved in what honestly can be a dry field potentially when you're starting out. If you think about it, like way back when in the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of people were stuck in procurement. That's where you sent people to go end their career, basically. It was just, cut a PO, do something transactional. It wasn't necessarily highly strategic at a lot of times, but it was starting to get to that transformational aspect of it. And there was one other class that was kind of the capstone class at U of I, where it was a case study. You did an internship, you had to write a paper on an internship. And she was really the one that kind of helped me get into the idea of consulting. And that's really kind of the one that led me to my initial career.
And so you did end up in the world of consulting. You were at Accenture for a little bit and then Gibson, but then, and then made your way to Sure. I'm kind of curious, what were some of the differences you noticed between being on the consulting side and being the industry side? And I know a lot of people will actually vacillate between those. Some people go into industry, then return to consulting, go back to industry, and vice versa.
Yeah. So when I came out, I started out it was a boutique firm called Gibson Consulting. And I was there probably about 3 or 4 years. A lot of great mentors there. Actually, during that time, it really got me my international experience. So I was just coming off of a project. I was dating a girl for 6 years. We had broken up, and somebody comes into the office one day and they're like, hey, we got a spot in just outside of London. If somebody wants to go for 3 weeks, could be 3 months. And I raised my hand. They're like, all right, well, you're in the ring for it. So all of a sudden Monday, they're like, yeah, you're locked in. Next Saturday, I'm on a flight, which turned out to be a 9-10 month engagement out at Pitney Bowes, just outside of London. So that kind of got me the international exposure and kind of the jump start on interacting with Asia and Europe and everything like that, which was a huge influence in what really helps me now in today in international strategic sourcing with Sure. So after that, I did end up there was some waffling at the firm with ownership and whatnot. So I ended up going over Accenture. And the thing was, Accenture is an exceptional company, but I was used to a boutique firm. So you had to kind of make your own way. You had to staff yourself on projects. And honestly, it was way too big for me. Wasn't really settling in there. And at the same time, 2 of the guys that I worked with at my previous firm, they had moved over with the old owner, and they gave me the full court press to come over what was Gibson 3. Honestly, it's been 5 iterations of the name of the company.
Yes.
What it was at that time. So we had a project based out of Germany and Pittsburgh, a lot of time between there and China. So all in, I was probably in consulting in about 7 years. And during that time, when I was coming back from my London engagement, I had met my wife. So I was all about going back to Europe and everything. And then we started dating. I'm like, I'm good. I want to stay a little closer to home. By the time we kind of settled in, we got married, and I'm like, what kind of how we started the conversation up. Want to have kids, but I'm on the road 4 days a week or 3 weeks out of a month. Well, it's hard to start a family doing that and settling in. And I didn't want to hang her out to dry. So I started looking for industry. And oddly enough, Shure was a company that I had consulted with when I was at my first company. I wasn't on the register roster. They were like, no, it's not a conflict of interest. I had an interview for a position. It was in the similar field. It was for CEMs, basically, or PCBAs, no experience with it. And I made it to the last round, like, look, we love your skill set. And I'm like, I genuinely appreciate the offer. I was surprised I got this far. Well, it just so happened months later, I got a call. My wife and I are on our honeymoon. I get a call at 3 a.m. like, hey, Kris, you still interested in Shure? I'm like, 3 a.m. in Honolulu. Can I give you a call on Monday? I didn't. Ended up back and forth, and I started out there then in a packaging specialist role. So packaging and prod lit, and just kind of kept accumulating more and more background and knowledge and then more responsibilities.
Interesting. And so how has the business changed? Because it's funny, like Shure is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year, right?
Yes.
And there's, as I understand it, there's going to be a big celebration, or maybe there already was?
So our anniversary was at the end of April, and we celebrated it in Niles as one of the larger kickoffs for everybody there. And across the globe, there's been cascading celebrations to try to get all the associates. And the last one had just happened last Friday, actually, down in Juarez. Part of it was that the executives could have time to go, like a group subset of the executives could make their way to all of them. On top of it, Juarez, there were a lot of associates, and it gets real hot down there during the summer. So they wanted to push it back a little bit later in the summer, early fall, where it was a little bit more manageable with the heat. So we're just winding down all the parties.